Good day, Finn Badgers. This is going to be a late. I know this is a late one, but we just finished watching a video by Screenman about John Hammond from Jurassic Park. There are some aspects to that analysis which I think marry well with Donald Trump and other wealthy people who never started from a low position. They are consumed. The tariffs, for example, right? Yeah, okay. The tariffs, for example. I'll put a comparison up. I'll do a comparison here, right? So, John Hammond had this dream, and it was a good dream. It was. It was just too big, and it was never truly achievable. And he had no discipline to manage that dream once he made it a reality. And he did make it a reality, but because he didn't have the real world context, because of him being wealthy and brought up wealthy, he didn't have this real world context of how things actually work, what the consequences for all this are going to be. He just thinks, yeah, this will work. This is going to be good and it'll work. And I'm going to put all the money into it. I'm going to make it good. I see the same thing with Donald Trump. Now, don't get me wrong. There are differences. Like, at least in the film, John Hammond was more of he was more about his dream. He had a good dream. He had good intentions behind what he was doing. Book Hammond, not so much. But film Hammond, the one everyone knows, he had good intentions. Trump doesn't and never has. However, ever since the 70s or 80s or whatever, he's had this dream that tariffs are the way to go forward. And just like John Hammond, Trump is finding out just how difficult it is to achieve your dream if you've no discipline behind that. If there's no actual research gone into doing what you want to do, if there's no actual experts, and not only that, but no one to tell you where you're going wrong in your own team. This is where I think John Hammond did have some people who challenged him, but he wouldn't listen. Trump had this in his first administration, less so now, but in this administration, he's going ahead with his tariff dream, global tariffs, and so that America gets rich. He thought, he dreamed that up in his own head, that just like John Hammond, he saw the perfect vision of how his tariff things would work, and wanted everyone to be in on that. Well, all the rich people anyway. And even now, whilst sometimes he still, it seems to get through to him that this tariff thing might not be a good idea, might not have been the best idea. He still, just like Hammond throughout that first film, he won't accept that his idea is gone wrong. He won't accept that his dream has gone bad. I mean, Trump will have, he thinks all this stuff, because this is the wealthy people for you. They don't think like this. They don't think, oh, what's going to be the consequences of my actions? Because so often throughout their lives, they don't have any fucking consequences. Or if they do, they just don't listen to them. And this is another thing I think that marries with John Hammond to Donald Trump, you know? In the film, like, you see, and I am focusing more on the film here, because more people know the film than they do the book. I know the book. I have the audio book. And I have a copy of the physical book somewhere. But in the film, John's already being challenged. He's already getting legal challenges because of deaths on the island and other such things. And his first reaction is to avoid it. You know, there's a challenge to his leadership, and he avoids. There's a challenge to his dream, and he avoids it. And goes off to deal with his family stuff. And when he is confronted in that famous scene in the lunchroom, where, you know, Malcolm comes out with that famous line, "Your scientists, yes, but your scientists were so busy on whether or not, so busy trying to see whether or not they could. They didn't bother to think of whether or not they should." That scene there shows Hammond being confronted by experts that his park, his dream, is dangerous and is not what he seems to think it is. Trump is having the same thing. And he's doing everything he can to distract people from the fact that his dream is not working. And he is refusing to see that his dream is not working. Now again, I'm not saying that it's a complete one-on-one here. Like I said, that Hammond had good intentions, Trump never did. But for me, I think that there is a seriously strong comparison to be made here, and it is a commentary on the wealthy, on the psychology of the wealthy when they go to do these big things. Now, it's why wealthy people should stay away from fucking politics. They don't know what real life is. No, they don't know how difficult it is to actually get stuff done when you have consequences in the way. Because so often their money supersedes those consequences. And Boris Johnson found that out in government. Trump should have found that out in government the first time round, and he didn't listen. He did not learn. Now, his dream is going to make everyone worse. Everyone's lives worse. The rich people they're looking short term and think, oh look, tax breaks, we're going to get more wealthy. But in the end, this is going to make things worse for them as well. You could apply a similar thing, possibly. I mean, you could almost apply the same sort of comparison here to Putin. He had this great dream of a greater Russia and bring Ukraine back into the greater Russia and stuff. Look how that's gone. And that's because they don't see they don't see the realistic consequences of what's going to happen. You see their dream, and that's it. And no matter how many times you say that the dream is failed, they won't listen. Now, in the end, John Hammond does listen. Trump won't. That's another major difference. Is Trump won't listen, and everything's just going to keep getting worse. But I do still think that John Hammond, the character, some aspects of the character of John Hammond are very applicable to Donald Trump. Yeah, that childlike aspect, you know. I mean, in the book, to me, Donald Trump's a bit more like the book Hammond. But again, most people don't know the Jurassic Park book, so hence why I'm trying to draw comparisons with the film. But even with the film, there are definite comparisons to be made. I mean, you can even look at look at Bloomberg. Look at Bloomberg when he tried to create a new park because he thought, "Yeah, I'm a billionaire. I've got enough money to do this." He had a dream of becoming president, but he goes to do it, and he's like, "Oh, see, that's the opposite of Donald Trump." So, oh, this is not going to be the same thing. This is not going to work. So he backed out on it. But Donald Trump does have this exact same thing with John Hammond, where he is deluded and besotted with the idea. He's deluded into being besotted with the idea of his tariff dream that he refuses to believe it won't work, even though the evidence is there to show it won't fucking work. He won't listen. And what's worse with Donald Trump is that he's got a load of people to believe him. I mean, at least with Jurassic Park, there were always cynics within the organisation itself, within Gen. You know, there were people that people did argue with Hammond consistently. Muldoon, Nedry. I'm pretty sure Wu even argued with Hammond, not in the film, but he did in the books. So, or in the book. So, and Trump just doesn't have that. You know, it's all groupthink. There seems to be barely any pushback. There's nothing to go, no, Mr. President, I don't think this is going to work. And this is where I think Donald Trump will not learn the same lessons that film John Hammond did. So yeah, I know this is a late one. I didn't even know whether or not I put one out because I have an abscess at the moment, and while the swelling's gone down a bit, I can still feel it still hurts. But this one was just going through my mind. I just watched this analysis by Screen Man, and I'm like, or Screen Crush or whatever it was, and I'm like, you know what, that rings true with Trump, and I could not get it out in my head. So, let me know what you guys reckon, because yes, I know there are differences between John Hammond and Donald Trump, but I think there are major similarities there that could explain what might happen going forwards. Donald Trump is going to get more and more angry the more and more his dream does not work the way he envisioned it. Like I said, for decades, Trump has envisioned tariffs making America rich. You know, doing everything that he said he would, but it hasn't. There's a reason for that. It's the same thing with John Hammond. He didn't put the adequate research into this. He doesn't have experts around him to tell him, how to do this. He's just doing it off the cuff, and he's doing it. He's being directed by his dream. I mean, don't get me wrong. The other thing with Donald Trump is he's also being directed by Peter Thiel and all that. But I do think there is a serious thing here where Trump really believes in his own dream. And that's the problem with the wealthy. Like, they really believe their own ego. They really believe their own egos. They really believe their own delusions. And because they have the money, they think, oh, I'll go into politics. Imagine if John Hammond had tried to go into politics. It would have ended. It wouldn't have ended. It wouldn't have ended well either. And it's because it's a child in the body of a grown man with money and resources beyond his dreams, and no fucking discipline. To me, there's a direct comparison here to be made. Again, not fully, but there is a direct comparison to be made here. Let me know what you guys think. Hopefully this continues. This gets better. And I'm hoping to be able to get the next Envirovid out tomorrow, but we'll have to see about that one. So, guys, let me know what you think of what I've had to say here, and if you haven't read the book Jurassic Park, I do suggest you either listen to or read it. Very good book. And if you haven't watched Jurassic Park in a long time, re-watch the first one so you can get an idea of what I'm talking about. But yeah, John Hammond, in many ways, similar to Donald Trump. Let me know what you guys think. My shield at your backs, badgers, and my sword at your service. Freaks, blessings, badgers.